Hi, everyone, and welcome to the first session of the Better Business Conversations brought to you by Practice Better. Today, I will be joined by Jen and Brittany. We were going to be talking about a business building topic that we hear a lot about, but just a little bit more about the Better Business Conversations. This is a new series. We're really excited about it. We'll be talking about other business building topics. We'll be talking to Practice Better users, featuring industry experts, really giving you a variety of topics to help support your business as you start and grow your health and wellness business. So we're really excited. Jen's going to kick us off with our first topic for you today. Jen?
Yeah, thanks, Natalie. Hi, everyone, and thanks so much for joining us for our first BBC edition. So today we're going to be diving into the idea of really working smarter and not harder. So this is sort of a through line with Practice Better, just in, the platform obviously having this ability to really help you streamline things and save you time. And so this is sort of the theme that we're going to go with today, like how can you really work smarter and not harder. And, when you're thinking about all the content that you create as a health professional, and there is a lot, from the recommendations for your clients, protocols, resources, to even the marketing side of your business, right? So like social media posting, blog posting, all of that kind of stuff. If you were to reinvent the wheel every time, you'd be adding so much time to your plate. And that's not scalable, right? So what we want to dive into today specifically is how you can really repurpose and reuse your content to help you scale your practice. And so how do you go about doing that? In which areas of your practice does it make sense to repurpose your content? So that's what we're excited to share a bit about today. And so the first piece that I wanted to talk to was just really looking at some sort of common questions that you might get from your clients. So really starting to take inspiration from that place as a starting point, because that then allows you to see, okay, what are some things that I can sort of put into a format that I can share over and over again, instead of having to respond or type the same thing to each client over and over again. And so, maybe what you do with that is to even create an official document that's just sort of a consolidated list of all your clients' common questions. And then you can, share that with all of your clients when you start working together. So it sort of nips it in the bud before they, have the chance to ask you all these questions. You've shared this resource document with them right off the bat, which I think can be super helpful. And then with that type of workflow, like you could then even expand on each of those questions as a blog post. Like you could turn that into some other content, like a blog post. You could even then use some of those points from a blog post as like a script for a video, like a video resource for your clients, or even an audio clip for them. And then you can even pull some of those themes and bullet points for captions on social media. So there's a lot of ways that you can sort of take, inspiration from your clients' questions and really repurpose that in multiple sort of formats for the ability to share that with clients in different ways, and also sort of tie that into the marketing side of your business on like the blog and social media side of things as well.
Yeah, and one thing to keep in mind, so as you're thinking about all these different ways that you can convert your content to reach people in more ways, you'll want to know that each platform that you're putting this content will differ a little bit. So, for example, with social media, if we were to take a look at something like Instagram versus Twitter versus Pinterest, each of those is going to have a slightly different format. So you can take that information and kind of tweak it so that it fits and it feels appropriate for that platform. So maybe with Instagram, even within Instagram, you can go from a post to an IGTV, you can talk on your stories, and you can get really creative with Reels nowadays. So even within these platforms, you can kind of tweak your content and reach people in multiple different ways. Pinterest, you're going to have a different size graphic. And then Twitter, that's usually more short and sweet to the point. So you're kind of finding that key message within your copy and really shortening it down so that people can kind of see what you're about or what you're trying to convey at a glance. So as you're thinking about the different ways that you can put together your information, just keep that in mind so that it feels appropriate and it's not just kind of copying and pasting into every single place.
Yeah, definitely people are going to be hanging out on different platforms, like you mentioned. Um, you know, it matters, like, do the little bit of research, especially if you're on those platforms and you're spending your time. You want to make sure you're spending your time wisely. Why be on a platform if you're not optimizing your use of it and not kind of following the rules or the algorithms, right? So definitely, if you're going to be on those platforms, know how to best present that content to your user on that specific platform. A really good place to start is, like, I'm a list person, like, make a list, make a list of either, you can start with, like, if one more client asks me how to, or why I have to, or what to do to whatever, it's like, make a list like that, like, where you're like, I've explained this a million times, obviously I'm exaggerating, and start with that list. And then that's a great place because clearly people want to know about that topic. So instead of kind of scratching your head going, I have no idea what to put on social media right now, I have no idea what to put in my next newsletter, I have no idea, I'm sure they're telling you. So believe them, right? So I think that that's a really great place to start. And, like your newsletter, I mean, they're going to feel like you're talking directly to them. So if they're not a client yet, they know, they're like, oh yeah, like, how'd she know I was thinking about this, or I've been struggling with this? Or if they are already a client, now you're reinforcing that message, because the same message does need to be reinforced, right? Multiple times. So definitely be paying, I know you're paying attention in your sessions, on what that one client needs, but start thinking about where there are recurring topics and where you can repurpose that content to continue to support your clients outside of your sessions while they're following you on social media, or bringing in new clients because you're speaking their language.
I love that, Natalie. Yeah, that really ties it all together. And sort of along those lines too, maybe it's not just common questions they're asking you, but even when we're looking at the actual like recommendations that you're giving to your clients, like there's another place to really look at how you can repurpose some of these things that you're sharing, right? Because often, especially if you have a specific niche, and even if you don't, there'll be a lot of common things that you're going to recommend to most clients, right? Sort of some of these baseline like principles. And so, look at, again, sort of making note of where you're recommending the same things over and over again, and how can you create a bank of those saved recommendations. And so, in Practice Better, you could actually use the recommendations feature within a protocol to save those. And so whether that be, food and nutrition type recommendations, lifestyle things like sleep or movement or meditation or whatever it might be, or supplements, like you can actually just create those recommendations once and save them. You can reuse over and over again. Not to mention, you can also create a protocol template or a note template, even along those lines of saving time. Utilize the template piece if you are having sort of those similar recommendations or commentary that you're using over and over again. And it's just going to save you time. It's going to also be beneficial for your client because they're going that they're going to be getting the baseline and groundwork sort of information that they really need, and you're not going to forget to share anything. Like, it's all just sort of saved there for them really easily. So that's sort of another piece to consider is what are some of those common recommendations, and how can you create sort of a bank to be able to easily reuse those over and over again.
Sorry. Not on the topic of recommendations, though. I think that is definitely something that if you're not doing, you don't have that bank like Jen talked about, you definitely are doing yourself a disservice, because it is so time consuming to write that stuff in, especially even if you're going to tweak it for each client a little bit. I mean, the reasoning behind why you're likely, encouraging someone to do something, or educating them on why sleep is important, or why water is important, or whatever recommendations you work with. I think the reason behind it is very frequently the same reason. So the recommendation may not be exactly the same, but the reason behind the recommendation, you may see a repeating pattern there. So the explanation as to why you're doing it, that part can even be just kind of rinsed and reused. And then the actual recommendation itself can be, personalized. I know I said I wasn't talking about recommendations, but I did want to, talk about that piece as well. The other piece of content that I think we don't always think to reuse, but that everyone has, every practitioner and every coach has, is forms. And we spend so much time building these forms and thinking through what information we need from our clients. Take your intake form, right? Especially in Practice Better, it couldn't be easier. Duplicate it, make a copy of it, and then scale it back and use that as your check-in form. You don't have to go in and like, what am I going to ask them every time? I mean, you can just go in and check on the main things that they're working on, or if you're, for example, you have a check-in worksheet, maybe you do, not check-in worksheet. If you have your intake form and you're asking them about, what their chief concerns are, maybe you even use that, scale it way back, and now you find 5-6 questions, and you use that as like kind of an application, like that discovery form that you're asking people to fill out before they ever see you, to find out if it's a good fit. You can obviously add a couple more pieces, but likely a lot of questions that you'll need throughout the journey of working with someone will come from your intake questionnaire. So, duplicate it and then really scale it back, and reuse that content.
Yeah, and what you just brought to mind too is thinking about group programs. I know that they're so popular right now, and for good reason, because you get to work with oftentimes multiple people at once. And one thing that we love about the program feature is that you can use it in multiple ways. So you can also think about how you can reuse features in a way that's maybe a little bit more unconventional. So maybe you're taking kind of that first real win out of your group program and you're turning that into a 5-day challenge. So you can really simplify the creation of that challenge, which is going to act as a kind of a lead magnet or a freebie offering to kind of funnel people into your larger group program offering. So you don't have to kind of reinvent the wheel either when you're thinking about these lead magnets or these free offerings either.
Yeah, I love that, Britt. That's such a great one because, often you spend a lot of time, and definitely do spend a lot of time, creating the content for a program, right? It's a consolidation of, probably for many practitioners, years of work and work with one-on-one clients and all of that. And so, yeah, just being able to sort of pull certain pieces from that to use as, that lead magnet. I think that's amazing and definitely such a great thing to do, because then for sure too that what you're offering in that lead magnet or that freebie is something that's of real value that you've used before with clients, and that maybe sort of a piece of your already existing program. So I love that idea. That's such a good one. Yeah.
Yeah. And then as you're, pitching people on this challenge, or you're sharing it with your audience, you're marketing it, you often will have kind of a cadence or a workflow with your emails that you're sending out. So oftentimes, maybe you're getting responses back that people need more information. They want to know a little bit more. So maybe having some templated emails that you can just copy and paste essentially, but then customize so that it feels personal still, and that person is getting the answers and, addressed in the correct way. But again, kind of doing this audit of your business, where are you finding that you're repeating information naturally anyways, and how can you streamline that and make it just a little bit easier and more time efficient, so that you're not spending that time just retyping the same information over and over.
Yeah, I think email templates is something that's so, I'm assuming, right? But I think it's not something that we think to do. I'm sure lots of people do it, but I don't think everyone does this. I think it's such a huge time saver because I can tell you I've got a decent amount, or at least had a decent amount of templates that I used to use. Even though I had a decent amount, there were still probably equal amount of questions or requests that I would get in that didn't have a template. So even though I was using that model to kind of help expedite my ability to get, through my inbox, I still didn't use it fully. And I knew every single time I'm like typing out the same answer for the, 100th time, I was like, why did I not set up a template for this? And of course I didn't take the moment afterwards to use it as a template, but that is such a great tip. I wanted to come back really quickly to the programs that Britt was talking about, using that first module as like a lead magnet. And I love that. I think it's such a fantastic strategy. I would also say, if you're starting with your lead magnet, or you haven't created a program yet and you're thinking about a program, like, not to create a lead magnet that you can't reuse. So like, if you're creating a lead magnet, like, and like, I don't know. I mean, if it's never going to be something you're going to use to support your clients, or you would never include into your custom program, I wouldn't consider using that, because if you have a lead magnet, then it's an easy like addition to your program. So if you don't already have the program and now you're pulling out a module to be your lead magnet, then you can very easily tack it on and be like, hey, if you sign up early, you also get access to this. Or you think about, maybe some of your programs include meal plans, and maybe you ran a smoothie challenge. Well, how easy is it to take some of the recipes for those smoothies from that challenge and insert them into a meal plan that you've created for a program? So it doesn't always need to be brand new stuff. And to be honest, like, people don't need 100 fantastic smoothie recipes. They're going to use their favorite 1, 2, maybe 3, but literally I have my favorite smoothie recipe, and that's the one I always drink, unless it's summer and I really want something different. But so find, a couple recipes, or a few recipes that you love, that your clients love, that your family loves, that your friends have tried, that they love, and you reuse that.
Yeah, one thing I wanted to say in regards to the freebies too is you have to think about the kind of flow of your clients. Like, are they coming in through the free offering and then going into the paid program, and then kind of whatever's next from there? If you're offering these amazing freebies that are different every single time, I mean, that's wonderful, but you could see how people could get stuck just capitalizing on the freebies over and over again, because they're like, I'm getting so much great value for free. Like, why would I want to pay for whatever service you're offering, because you're giving them so much value. So really, when I think of freebies, that's where I think of it as like a teaser to your method or your expertise, or something that's going to kind of give them that win that leaves them wanting more, and inspires them to potentially work with you and actually become a paying client.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's a great point, Brett. Yeah. And one thing I was that just sort of popped up relating to what we were talking about, sort of like the email template piece, is also doing a similar thing if you're using an email marketing platform, right? If you're sending out, or for you're creating certain workflows for, say it's your lead magnet to your program to whatever, but being able to save those and sort of reuse them again as you have like a new lead magnet or a new program launching, which, kind of goes without saying, like, you're probably going to save those, but I think, there's other places that you can sort of save those sort of templates as well. And then the other piece is, in Practice Better, we have something called snippets, which we love, that I think, many people use, but some people don't know about them. And they're awesome because it basically allows you to like save a snippet of text that you can then reuse in multiple areas of the platform. So you can reuse it in like your notes, in your protocols, even in your chat messages. And just with a click of a couple keys on your keyboard, you can just pull up your whole list of snippets and you can just insert those anywhere. And so that's just a really nice way, again, if it's, maybe common explanations that you're giving to clients or, whatever it might be, that isn't always like a set recommendation that you might include in a protocol. Maybe it's something a little more nuanced or whatever it might be, then you save it as a snippet and then you can pull that up even if you're chatting with your client in a secure chat. So you're, saving yourself that time. And also the benefit of that is keeping the messaging really consistent for your clients across like all clients and across all different sort of areas that you might be sharing information with them.
Yeah, the way that I like to explain snippets, because they're such a fantastic resource, it's kind of like copying and pasting without that need of like finding the text, actively copying it, going in and pasting every time. Like think of it like you can always just paste what you need wherever you want in that moment. So you can save multiple snippets and you don't have to worry about like finding that email where you wrote that explanation or that message to that client. It's just already kind of saved for you. So if you're new to them, definitely check out snippets.
Yeah, definitely snippets. And then also too, we talked about emails and we talked about emails more in kind of response to someone's questions, like having those templates available. But also you can anticipate those questions as well. You can say, like if after the first session, someone comes in, whether it's their first like intake session or it's like that discovery session and they come in and they always have these same questions, you could get ahead of those in the future by putting those into, let's say, like a reminder email about the upcoming session or, well, I would say, yeah, actually probably a reminder email, sorry. But a reminder email where you can say like, hey, your session's coming up and, tomorrow, don't forget, blah, 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 or here are the things you're going to need, or here are the things we're going to cover, or, whatever it might be that you might get questions for, or questions about in your session, you can now, once you start seeing a pattern, say, all right, well, instead of having to answer that again, I'm just going to give them a heads up that, either here's what you might want to know, or even like doing a good job at saying like, maybe if you're doing for some reason, like you're doing a discovery session and someone comes in and thinks this is like their initial consultation and they think they're getting all the answers to everything. It's a good way to kind of remind them ahead of time, this is what it is and this is what it isn't. So, because again, the content we're talking about repurposing is not always written content, right? It's might be content that you are speaking on a regular basis, right? That you continuously have to educate someone on. Now take it and put it into a written format or a video format. So you don't have to spend your time, talking about the same thing and not being able to get into something that's a bit more important.
And I think that just really leads to a great client experience. You can imagine how different it would feel as a client if you had to be actively asking all the questions for all the pieces of information you want to know. And there's definitely that element when you're in that position where you're like, do I even know the right things to ask? So you can think if your practitioner was preemptive enough that, they answered all your questions and more, you're just set up for a really great experience because you have that kind of trust and faith in them that they're giving you everything up front. There's nothing kind of like behind the scenes that you're forgetting to ask or, they're not being upfront with. So that kind of leads us into talking about more of some of the benefits of all of these different ideas and why you should actually maybe take that initial time to set these things up. Because maybe you have this workflow right now where you feel like you're in your groove, and it's going to take a little bit of extra time to set up some of these ways to repurpose content. But really, in the end, it will save you a lot of time. It becomes a really efficient model. And Natalie kind of touched on this before, but it reinforces your message. So we know it's kind of like marketing 101. People need multiple touch points or exposure to something before it really resonates with them or lands with them. And I think likely now more than ever, with how fast-paced content is and just like the sheer volume of how much we're taking in on any given day, having your message out there in multiple different ways, at multiple different times, is just going to help establish your message and make you the expert in their eyes, in your client's eyes.
Yeah, for sure. And along the lines of that, feeling like an expert piece, like I think another big part of that when you're in this process of sort of repurposing your content in different mediums, in different ways, you're also, as the practitioner, getting more and more comfortable with it, right? Like you're learning how to speak about it in really short form, in more longer form, and you become more comfortable and more in depth even with the content that you're sharing, and that in turn builds this confidence in you to feel more of an expert, right? And so when you feel more of an expert, when you have that energy about you, then that's going to reflect on obviously how other people see you as well, and sort of build that trust with clients and potential clients who are looking to work with you too.
And kind of bridging those 2 points of like reinforcing your message and kind of establishing yourself as the expert here, it also is great because then you think, if you put out a piece of content one time, like you say, drink more water, okay, you put it out once, it doesn't get any engagement on social media, in your newsletter, it doesn't get much reaction, and you're like, oh, they weren't interested, move on. So one, we wasted content, we wasted our time building it, putting it together. But then the people, again, we talk about needing to have multiple touch points. They may not have tried it. So they need to hear it again, tell them again, show them another way, give them a different tip. Then you're going to also start learning about their behaviors. Because, the great thing about social media is that we can get pretty immediate feedback, right? They can like it, they can comment. We can also track the performance of different posts, right? So that one touch point or that one post about drinking more water may not get anyone to take action, right? So you need to tell them a couple of times so they will. And then once they do, then they feel better. Oh, now Jen, she really knows what she's talking about. Wow, I did that. Wow, why hadn't I tried that before? But yeah, she just messaged about it five other posts or on different platforms. They didn't see it at that point. So, the two pieces really go hand in hand. You can't just put out great content without making sure that people are getting it, because the other components of this, like Jen's talking about, of really beginning to establish yourself as an expert, relies on them seeing it multiple times so they can take the action to view you as an expert.
Yeah, and you think just with how, like I mentioned, how fast-paced content is these days, and with algorithms that we're always trying to compete with, content gets buried. So like Natalie was saying, like your client might not have had the opportunity to see it. So it's not this idea of like, oh, I already put out that Instagram caption, I talked about that, and I can't talk about it again. No, in fact, if it's something that is part of your expertise and what you work on with clients, then share it multiple times, and it's just going to get through to people that much more. And I think sometimes it'll feel like with these different methods that you're trying, if you're trying different platforms and you're trying different formats, it's kind of like working at a muscle. Some things are going to feel a lot more natural to you and a lot more second nature. So for example, maybe you're really great on camera, but when it comes to writing down everything you want to say, like you just have writer's block, or it's not flowing. Maybe it's the opposite. Your words really flow, but then you get super camera shy. So this is like a great way of really kind of reflecting on your personal strengths and weaknesses to see kind of like where maybe you need to spend a little bit more time to reach your clients in a more effective way too.
Yeah, absolutely, Brett. Yeah, and one other thing that just sort of popped into my mind too along these lines is, when you're again having this opportunity to share your content in multiple different ways, whether that's sort of internally with your current clients or more of like a social media like potential client type of thing, you'll start to learn to what resonates best with them. So not only are you learning what feels good for you and your personality and what sort of flows, but you're also learning like, okay, what sort of medium kind of resonates best with them? Is it video? Is it audio? Is it a workbook? Is it a recipe book? Whatever it is, like you're sort of refining that. So it gives you this opportunity to really hone in on your ideal client and know how to deliver your message in the best way for them when you're, sort of trying out different ways to do so, and maybe your current clients that you're working with, it's a little bit different than your social media following or whatever it might be. So even on the different sort of areas of your business, there may be slightly different sort of formats and ways you can repurpose that sort of resonate and land best with them.
Such an important piece that Jen just mentioned there is like, how you're going to talk to your existing clients and how you're going to talk to your potential clients will be very different. That will look different to every practitioner, every coach, but it is so important to understand they are two different audiences. You can broach oftentimes maybe the same topics. The way you're going to broach them will be different. So again, back to what works with you can still reuse the core of the content, but like Brittany was talking about earlier, you want to make sure the messaging is the right messaging for that audience as well as the platform that you're going to utilize to deliver the content. Sorry, go ahead, Britt.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say, like, the nice thing about social media and marketing your business is that as your community interacts back with you, you pick up on their language. So how they're describing their issues, what sort of pain points they're looking to address, the things that are causing them discomfort in their life. And you can think of that as like your marketing voice, because when it comes to, say, like writing a protocol, you're not going to be talking in those same like catchy hook pain points. You're going to get a little bit likely more technical with people. So sometimes you have to tailor your voice, but the nice thing about putting out your message on all these platforms is you're interacting with your community and you're going to pick up on the language that really kind of resonates with them too.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I love all these points because I think it's important to always tie it back to like, what is the benefit of doing this, right? Because we're sharing, these are all the different ways that we can repurpose our content, but how do we tie it back to that why? Because that's what's going to actually motivate us to do these things. And we talk about this a lot, is sort of the accountability piece with ourselves and that kind of thing, and having that why in place is really important. So hopefully some of those resonated with you in terms of just really being able to establish yourself as that expert, feel more like an expert, understand your clients better, be able to refine your message, like all of those things just really come out of that sort of repurposing of your content. So yeah. Anything else you guys wanted to share before we sort of wrap up our session today?
No, I think that's everything.
The only thing I was going to say is just kind of, as a next step, like we talked about, take stock of what you're doing. What are you doing over and over again? What are you saying or writing, or even what are you hearing over and over again? So what are you saying to your clients? What are you hearing them ask? Like just make your lives easier, make a list, just keep a running list, because stuff will continue to come up as you've kind of taken care of all of the maybe the most frequent questions, and you'll see the ones that come up maybe a little less frequently, but you can still create content out of that. And instead of scratching your brain and figuring out what do they want to know, just just listen to them. So I think that's a really great place to start, and then you can figure out how you can reuse the content that basically they're asking you to create.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, beautiful. I love it. Well, thank you all so much. We hope you enjoyed this first session of Better Business Conversations. We are so excited to be bringing this new series to you. So let us know in the comments below, what resonated with you, maybe what you'd like to learn more about going forward with this series. What are some of your roadblocks and challenges when it comes to your practice and your business? All of these things are really valuable to us, so please put those in the comments below. And yeah, going forward, you can expect to see different sessions from our favorite industry experts, practice better users, panel discussions on a variety of different topics to really support you in your health and wellness business. So stay tuned. We are so excited to see you back for more BBC Better Business Conversation sessions, and we will see you then. Thanks, everyone. Bye.